to answer your question, yeah, man, I did. I really did block out probably the first. I was probably still stunned because they had a 15-minute break, after that happened.
Mm-hmm.
That's along with the time when everything was going on. So there was we had a good half hour of no wrestling, So so when it picked back up, I still kind of don't remember much of those two matches, to be honest with you.
God. So you're
I mean, I,
sitting in the third row, and so at this point, there's the Blue Blazer promo on the screen, which I'm right in thinking this is as it was reported that
Yeah,
the Blue Blazer promo would play on the big screen, so the arena kind of went dark. So at this point, I imagine you're looking to your top left, which
yeah.
means the ring and the position to where Owen fell would have been to your 1 o'clock.
Yes, yes, that's right, man. Yes,
So can
sir.
you kind of just walk us through what you do remember of that happening?
Yeah. So the match right before it was a hardcore match.
Hmm.
And back then, hardcore matches were hardcore, man. They wasn't. There were table pieces and chairs and kendo sticks. That Steve Blackman, he used kendo stick a lot. There was parts of stuff, and what I remember is I think that they had this promo set up because you need Owen to be able to get into play. He's already been in place. He'd been up there for quite a while,
Hmm.
dressed as some kind of maintenance to get him up there into this walkway. There was a couple rigging guys, a couple cameramen, or not cameramen, lighting guys. Kemper Arena had some lights from up there too that you could walk and work from up there, and then maintenance to the scoreboard was up there. Well, what I remember is the hardcore match. There was a lot of crap in the ring. They were kicking shit out of the ring just left and right. I mean, and if you watch that, what's the referee Jimmy Correll or
Cordes.
Correll? They're him. So he talks about how he was kicking stuff out, and I remember that they were kicking stuff out of the ring, and they were showing this entry on this interview, and we didn't. You can't hear what Jim Ross is saying, so you're kind of on your own when you're in these events. They don't really tell you much of anything. You're watching that jumbotron, and they're doing that silly thing, where they do with Owen, and he's kind of being spoofy about stuff, and the arena's completely dark, and it's obviously they're having you look one way so that you're not, sleight of hand, so you're not seeing what's going on up here,
Yeah.
getting ready to drop. And I remember him kicking stuff out, and then the loudest crash. I mean, now back then I didn't have any in the industry. I wasn't working in any type of entertainment industry or anything. I didn't but the only thing I can describe it now as it sounded like a speaker that was plugged in or a microphone that had dropped that was plugged in, and it was just so loud. And I know they mic the rings, for slams and stuff to make, and I'm sure that had something to do to it, but it was such a loud, and the out of the corner of my eye, like you see something just like a car that you would see going by real fast on the road. You
Hmm.
seen it, but you didn't see it. But I saw a flash, and then the bang, and then when we turned around, it was confusing because you did everything's still really dark, and you were kind of like looking to figure out what, and then you saw Owen, there, and that was when you thought, well, that's weird, man. That's what's he doing there? Because this isn't, you didn't know he was being lowered in. They didn't tell us that was what he was going to do. We
Yeah.
didn't even know that. But he's laying there, and I remember him setting. He'd land. Apparently, he'd hit his head, chest on the turnbuckle in the corner, and flopped, and it came back. It came back, and he tried to set up. That was the first. That's my first image now, because I'm looking at him, and I'm starting to gather in what's going on. And a lot of people are still looking. Nobody's holding any signs up because it's dark. Nobody's on TV yet, and you could see him try to set up like a half a setup, and
Wow.
then he comes back down. Now, of course, he's got the mask on, so you can't see any expressions in his face or anything. But he collapsed, and then when he collapsed, I thought that's not good there. Like, and I didn't understand. I still hadn't put together that he'd fallen from such a great distance yet. You
Yeah.
didn't get that yet. Guys come out from under the ring all the time in the dark. There's holes cut. You don't know
Yeah.
what.
Yeah.
But that boom and the amount of dust. I mean, I work with car racing now, and the amount of dust that came out from under the ring that was probably embedded into that ring in the wood and the plywood and the
Hmm.
padding. it was something that was the first thing. That's the thing that I remember most vividly, even to this day. Was the amount of it was just a boom and a dust, and I was just, and that what was strange in your head, like what was that?
Yeah.
You
So
know,
even with a number of slams and hits that the ring takes, all that dust was still sitting in there. So it
I
took a
never even
slam so hard to release it. That's scary.
that's
Um,
that's how I can describe the impact. It had to been just unbelievable to see that. I've been in wrestling for a long time. You've even seen them where they rigged ring. This was, and I was so close, like you said, you could see the dust particles still in the lighting. And I just thought,
Wow.
oh my gosh, that was a very impactful, whatever it was. Whatever that was hard hit. And then when you put two and two together, like, holy crap, I think he fell from somewhere. And then you realize he's got that harness on.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
did
when my head,
did you
yeah.
ever have a moment where you thought that it was maybe part of the show, or did you know
Now,
right away that it was?
here's what was strange, man, because it was so loud and everything was so dark and they were still doing that video that it just seems out of character of any wrestling event I'd ever been at, right? It could have been like they could have tried doing something that, and it might have. My first thought was he fell from a 20 feet, like he descended down and then he and had been hurt. That was my first thought. But when I saw him try to set up, I was like, man, that just doesn't look right. And then the moment I'm so close, the moment he pulled the mask off, the arena was kind of dark. Then they kind of went with house lights or whatever it was. I don't know what, but when they pulled his mask, when they pulled his, so before we get to that, Jerry the King Lawler, that's the thing I remember the second, him sprinting from his announce position to the other side of the ring and slid in halfway, kind of a deal like they do, and he kind of
Yeah.
looked and he pushed himself back and then he climbed up in the ring again and he was helping the referee, and there were some other people in there, and they were the guys I think helping clearing that ring out from the previous match. And all I remember is the King he wasn't running like crazy around, but he ran in, back out, back in, and then back to the position, and then back in the ring again.
Yeah.
Before he came back and made the announcement, not before he even announced he passed, like, hey, this isn't part of the show and that kind
Yeah.
of thing. So people in the crowd, if you go back and listen to that announcement, there's some people that think this is still part of it because you don't know it, man. And it's a huge arena. This place was sold out, man.
Mm.
It was packed. And this was when it was starting to get good. This was part of the meat of the show, right? Like the first couple matches were good with Kane and X-Pac and X-Pac and Al Snow and Head and stuff. But we were starting to get in, and this was going to be the last kind of gimmick, kind of not gimmick, but kind of one of those early matches to get to the meat of this lineup. And so it wasn't an anticipated match, guys. Like a lot of it, this was just another match in there. It was the Godfather. He'd do his thing, and the Owen would do his thing, and somebody would fall down. It was just one of those deals. And so it wasn't
Yeah.
like we were all anticipating. It wasn't like it was a build big up for, it wasn't built up to that match. That wasn't the main match of the night, So like I said, when it happened, it was such a strange everything that was going on right there at the time that I just, like I said, the King, he stood out in my mind that I knew something wasn't right because this
What was
isn't
his, what was
the
the King's
announcer
face
doesn't
like?
bounce back and forth like that.
Yeah. Did you see? Was the King's face any indication as to
Yeah,
what was going on? Yeah.
most definitely. It was, you could just tell, man, when he walked the first time he ran back, and I don't know what he ran back for, but when he came back the second time, his face, just like everybody talking about, it was ashen white, and he had that look of like, what do we do? Like, what? Because to be honest, this is at this point they're bagging, they're using the bagger on him and
Oh.
doing compressions, right? Well, now that we know that he died of the aorta probably being separated, those chest compressors just pushing blood out of, he was just inside of him. He was just that the CPR wasn't going to help. He
Oh.
was he needed, and they got into the hospital as fast. It wasn't like they stuck around and did it here. It was they were on him as they were carrying him out,
So what I can imagine is, for a couple minutes that may have felt to you guys like you're standing watching that for an hour, may have only been a couple of minutes. What was the general feeling from the people around you? Was there whispers and people saying, what's going on? I take it at this point you all become one collective. What's going on? I hope he's safe. Could you tell us a bit about what that feeling was like?
Yeah. So I was there, and like I said before, I love to go to these matches, and man, I'll drop a few. I don't get crazy, but man, I like to yell. And right next to me that night was a dad with his 4 kids, and we're talking young kids. And so like I said, I was kind of bummed, man, because I'm not one of those I'm not one of those jerk guys who's gonna act a fool all night next to a kid. I mean, I have that much decency, so I toned it down a little bit. But I mean, I was ready to. I paid a lot of money for these tickets, so everybody on the lower area, man, was really pumped for this thing, man. And when it happened, because these kids don't know, they know what they see on TV, man, and that's all they know. But when it happened, they're still all kind of in there, and they're asking Dad what's going on. And I turned to Dad right when I saw the real paramedics. You know what real paramedics look like?
Yeah.
They got more stuff on their belts and stuff, and a lot of them are carrying real equipment and not.
Yeah, they don't look like indie wrestlers.
Yeah, it's just a different look, and that's when when you seen. This is before you saw the X thing that they give you when something's hurt. I don't remember anybody giving that because I think they all knew. Oh my God, this is an X. this they knew for sure this was messed up. But I turned to the dad, and I told him, "Hey, you need to get your kids taken to the concession stand or the T-shirt because this isn't part of the show, man, and this is real, and this is not." My wife was a doctor or a nurse at that time.